All right, so everybody listening, if you're listening to us on one of the podcasting sites, like, subscribe, share. We are grateful that you are listening. If you're listening to us on the radio, we're also grateful. We know you can't like, subscribe, or share, but again, we're grateful you're listening, and keep up the great work. We are always trying to bring great interviews, whether it's sports, whether it's politics, whether it's lifestyle issues, the list goes on and on. And again, we're grateful you're listening to us on whatever platform you are. Again, Jenna Riccio here on Fire Breathing Rob. I was getting a little tongue twisted on that. And some people may know Jenna from the story they put out from with her and her son, Nate, over in People Magazine. It's been on many other websites. Also, a lot of other news corporations have put this story up. We're going to be talking about that. I'm not going to give away the whole story yet. We do want you to listen into the full-blown interview to hear her story and Nate's story. She is a teacher over in Connecticut at Walsh Elementary School. And Jenna, first of all, thanks so much for coming on. Also, thank you, Nate, for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so let's kick this around here. So I want to start off with Jenna first. You and your husband are teachers in general. I know he's an art teacher and you teach elementary. Let's talk about that relationship first, of how you both got into teaching in general.
Sure. We both started teaching in Waterbury at the same elementary school. Tim and I actually started teaching the same year. What was that, 15 years ago? So
wow.
He started first. He started at the beginning of that school year, and I came in April. They needed a second grade teacher, and we met and we became friends, and we were just friends for like almost 10 years before we started dating. And coworkers too, but he just over the years found we had so much in common, and then I helped him find a dog, and we started taking our dogs on doggy dates, and then we started dating. We started dating in 2018.
Okay. So this is fairly, everything kind of happened at once with you guys, and then Nate, and everything kind of fell together. Obviously now with the new baby, and we'll get into all that in just a second. So I want to talk about this, and either one of you guys can answer this. So talk about how the relationship with you and Nate started.
You want to go, or you want me to?
I'll go, sure. So I first met Jenna when I went into first grade, and she was my reading teacher, and she was really nice to me, and I really enjoyed that class. Yeah.
Okay.
He was so tiny when I first met him, a little munchkin. My principal had given me the heads up. At the time, he was in a wheelchair, and he had a health file that was like this thick. He also came with sickle cell disease, which I've heard about, but I wasn't like too familiar. I didn't know like things I should look out for in class, so looking at his files, I'm like, oh man, I've never had a student with like this many health issues. I'm not gonna lie, I was worried just what it would look like play out in the classroom. How is he gonna like mix with my other students? But when he came, he was like a little angel. He was super quiet, but I was teaching just reading at the time, and I could remember the first time reading with him at my back table. At the time, I taught first, second, and third graders reading. And Nate, when he came to me in first grade, was reading better than most of the third graders that I taught. Wow. I was blown away. And like I said, he was really quiet when I first met him, but it only took like a couple weeks for him to start warming up to his classmates. And then I just saw this like little personality start to poke through, and it was awesome. And of course, we got to know each other a lot more as the years went on, but that was what I remember from Nate at the very beginning.
So Nate, obviously you met Jenna, and obviously Jenna too, in your respect. I mean, you're teaching all these kids, and it seemed like Nate was ahead of the game as far as that goes, as far as reading. But, as a teacher, and I did teach for a little bit, I taught high school, which is a whole different game. I mean, it's very scary there. We won't scare you, Nate, with that, but we'll move on. But it was very trying for me being in a fairly good public school with that. But I don't want to bore you with that. So let's talk a little bit about that, Jenna. And when did you know? Because again, you're teaching all these kids, they're all special in all different ways. Some of them are, advanced, some of them are not advanced. And when did you know that Nate and you and even your husband had that special bond before even the adoption happened? Because obviously you started fostering first.
Right. So at the time, it's not this way at my school now, but at the time I told you I was just teaching reading. So I
Right.
would have the same students when they were in first and second and third grade. So it was called like looping. I worked on a team with other teachers, and kind of like you do in middle school, they would be with me for reading for 90 minutes and then go to another teacher for math and science and then end with writing. So we would keep those same classes for 3 years, which was really nice because you really get to know your students on a much deeper level, having them more than just 1 year. And same with the families, So then when Nate was in my first grade class, when I had them as second graders, there wasn't really that like introductory period. I could just pick up right from day one and know what these kids need. And so it really wasn't until Nate came back to me as a second grader that fall, I learned that he was placed into DCF care.
Mhm.
And with Nate's like medical conditions, I just worried about him being with like a random foster family, like
Yeah.
nothing against the family that he was with. It turns out they were great people, but they're strangers, and
Right.
I just knew that Nate's situation, based his medical needs, just required a lot, and I was worried about him. And I found that he had to go to the hospital to get a surgery on his arm while he was staying with that foster family. And I learned that his foster family was far. The distance was just like over an hour. They were
Oh,
in a
well.
different part of Connecticut. So I asked his DCF worker if I could go visit him while he was in the hospital, just to be, a familiar face. And
Sure.
she put me on the list, and I went to go see him, and we had a good time. Remember, it was around Halloween. I brought you.
So you brought me like an Ant-Man mask?
Yep, I brought him an Ant-Man mask, some books, because I was a reading teacher.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to his DCF worker, and he was telling me how, he's placed in a foster family. It's not the best for him because it was so far. So when
Right.
kids go into DCF care, I could only speak for Connecticut. They try and keep things as constant as they can. So they try not to change the kids' school, which is a good thing. We
Mhm.
wouldn't want everything to be uprooted all at once. But that meant Nate was traveling like over an hour each day back and forth from his foster family to school.
Just to interject quickly so the audience can kind of get a better gist of what's going on here. So obviously the travel is over an hour. Are the foster parents taking him to the school and back and forth? Because obviously I would say that a bus wasn't going to be doing that.
Yeah, no, they drove me to school, and I had to wake
Wow.
up early to do that.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
pretty incredible because an hour is a long time, especially with the gas prices and stuff. But we don't even
Yeah.
have to get into all that. But wow. But go ahead, Jen. I'm sorry I interjected. I just wanted
No,
to
that's
set the stage.
okay. And that was kind of my concern with wanting to go visit him in the hospital, because the
Yeah.
hospital that he goes to is 40 minutes further out. So I'm just
Wow.
thinking, these foster parents, they have kids too. Like, they're not going to
Yeah.
be able to spend all this time at the hospital. So let me go. I'll at least be a familiar face. And while I was there, I kind of got the feeling that where he was placed was temporary, and they didn't really have any ideas of where they could look for a permanent place. There wasn't any like other family members that were in a position to take him. So I straight up, I asked, I said, can I foster him? At the time I had my own home. Tim and I weren't living together. So I was in not a mansion or anything. I'm still here, a small house, but I had 2 extra bedrooms. And
Yeah.
Nate wasn't the first student that I had that went into foster care. And the
Oh,
thought was
well.
in my mind, like, I could do this, especially since I had the 2 extra bedrooms, but I never really followed up with it. But
Sure.
when this happened with Nate, I was like, okay, yeah, this is Nate and he needs someone, and it's gonna be me. And his DCF worker helped me get certified and go through all those trainings. And
Yeah.
ultimately it was up to Nate. You know, she asked, what'd she ask you, Nate? Do you remember?
I think she said, would you like to live with Mr. Keo? And I said, yeah, I was really excited.
Well, I think I was Miss Davina at the
Miss
time.
Vito, yes.
So let's talk about that process, because obviously, as you stated, in different states, it's very, some states are more lenient than others as far as the fostering. Same thing with adoption. We'll tap on that in just a second. Was it a long process? Was it kind of tough to get everything checked off as far as the boxes, or was it fairly easy? What was it, Jenna?
I definitely wouldn't say it was easy. I will say my DCF workers were amazing. They were there
Okay.
with me every step of the way, and thank God for them. I still consider them family, even though our
Wow.
case closed and everything, but
Yeah.
it was a lot. There was people coming to check the house. You know, I had to do like trainings, CPR, first aid, just
Wow.
medical trainings for Nate specifically,
Yeah.
lots of doctor's appointments, just getting me caught up, things like that. There was a lot going on. And the fostering process was a long time. I think it was 3 years that
Wow.
fostered Nate before the adoption was finalized.
So that was the fostering for 3 years. Was that Nate's call, or was that the DCF?
I think in the beginning, so again, I can only speak for Connecticut. I know
Sure.
the goal of DCF is to reunite families.
Yeah.
So I think in the beginning it was, we'll see what happens. They wanted Nate's biological mom to do some certain things, in order for him to move back there, and those things didn't happen. And then there was a possibility of maybe Nate going to be with his biological dad, and that kind of fell through. So I think that's what, kept.
Okay.
We never went into it saying like this is going to be permanent. I kind of started the process thinking like Nate will stay with me until people figure their stuff out, and
Sure.
just didn't. It went a different way.
Yeah. So obviously, when we talk about Nate's medical needs, and I do want to get into that, and I know you kind of touched on that a little bit, but if he wants to speak on it too, or if you want to touch more into that, Jenna, because they are pretty significant in general. He's went through pretty much through the ringer so far in his life at such a young age. Uh, I know he stepped out for a minute for people that he's back in action. But so since you're back in action, I don't know if you want to touch on this, Nate, because at 10 years old, you've kind of been through the ringer and have experienced some stuff that other kids your age have not experienced. I'm sure it's made you stronger as an individual, also.
Yeah. Well, uh, I do miss my mom and dad sometimes, but I would say uh I know that they still love me even though I was able to go back with them,
Yeah.
and sometimes my uh um I just I talk to my dad through Jenna so that sometimes he asks how I'm doing, and she tells him that I got into the National Honor Junior Society
Oh,
or
well, congratulations.
play or something
Very
like that.
good.
And yeah, yeah.
You want to tell them about any of the physical things you've had to overcome, like health wise?
Uh, well, I've had to um figure out most of the things that may help me with my amputations.
Yeah.
'Cause it was also really hard to um learn how to work with only 3 fingers.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I'd say I have overcome that, and I'm able to live a really good life right now.
Yeah.
I gotta just scream Nate's success because when he came to me in first grade, he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And then he would occasionally wear prosthetic legs.
Mhm.
When he came to live with me, he got fitted for a new set of legs, and that was a whole process that I had no idea about. He had like a wear schedule, we would start, he'd have them on for an hour in the middle of the day, see how he does,
Yeah,
up it a little. Now this guy wakes up, puts his prosthetics on, as soon as he gets up in the morning, has them on all day long, and he's running, jumping, playing basketball.
Wow.
Playing soccer, there's nothing he can't do, and he takes his legs off right before bed, and that's it.
Yeah.
So to
Well,
see him like go from point A to where he is right now, it's unreal.
well, there's a lot of people that I think you could really inspire, Nate, and I do hope that this story, whether it's through this media or another media, gets out to as many young kids or even adults that may be struggling. There's a lot of people struggling out there, depression, anxiety, the list goes on and on as far as mental health issues. And, they may be looking for that hopeful story, and your story is really hopeful, and you really shown through education, through even just getting up every day, how somebody that maybe has had some stuff against them in life can really achieve greatness and success. So I just want to congratulate you with that. And again, for people listening, this is Nate and Jennifer Riccio here on Fire Breathing Rob. We are talking about their story of adoption and success here as far as Nate in life. I want to talk a little bit about this, just going back to Jenna quickly. So, can you speak about, obviously, you had Nate for 3 years and things that you thought may have happened, didn't happen, they fell through. When did you and your husband speak and say, hey, listen, we should kind of make this final and just bring him in full time and just, start there?
Well, I'll say at the very beginning, this was Tim and I hadn't even been dating a full year before I decided fostering should be something that we do. We were living separately, and when I first went to visit Nate in the hospital, I went by myself. I didn't bring Tim with me, but I told him I was going. And I remember driving home after I had asked to be to foster Nate. I'm like, oh man, I gotta run this by Tim. I didn't even like talk to Tim about this.
Right.
So I asked him to come over, and I said, Nate really could use a foster family that's closer to school, that knows him, that knows his needs. I think we should do it. And without a doubt, he was like, yeah, we will.
Tim was working at the same school, correct? With you guys?
Right. So
Okay.
Tim knew Nate,
Okay.
was very familiar with him, loved him already. And he was on board right away. Like I
Sure.
said, we did go into it thinking it would be a temporary thing, but as we never really got invited to like the court appearances, but the DCF worker would keep us posted, and it was things like his biological parents were missing medical appointments, and that's what got Nate into the DCF system in the first place. It was like a case of medical neglect. So
wow.
they just weren't showing up and bringing him to the doctors that he needed to go to. And as that happened, our DCF worker let us know, like, there's a possibility that he might not be going back with them. Would you be open to adopting him? And there was no question on either part. It was just, yeah, of course that's going to happen. He's already family, and we're going to keep it that way.
Well, it really is a huge life-changing event for everybody involved. So
yeah.
it's really incredible. So how, obviously you were there for 3 years, so I would say the adjusting wasn't really a big deal, or maybe it was.
No, not really. I'd say the first year, I was actually excited for the new room, and I remember when I was at the hospital, you got me like a Minecraft panda, and I slept with that every single night at the beginning, and throughout the years, I've been really happy here. So
Okay. And now with the new baby in the house, that's been probably an adjustment for everybody also. So how is that playing out with you guys?
it's really great. I've always wanted a little sister or to be a big brother.
Mhm.
And so it's really fun. She's um always happy. She has a really energetic mood mostly. And yeah, she's really fun.
Yeah, we say we started, you know, it was just Tim and I and our two dogs, and then Nate came, and now we have Julian, so now we have our six pack.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there'll be 7 soon down the road.
Oh.
No, all right. We'll put the kibosh on that. Okay. All right. Anyways, again, for people listening, we're just finishing off with the last few questions here. But I want to just kind of end because we did have an audience question on this interview. And I do want to interject with that audience question. So, this person must have saw on another news source the ceremony that you guys had. As far as that goes, if you guys want to, either one of you guys want to speak about that, that would be great.
Want to talk about the adoption day, Nate?
Sure. It was really fun. It was like it was the first time of me being in like a court and to see a judge.
Mhm.
I had I had my brother there, all the DCF workers that helped with my case. I had most of my family there, and it was a really fun time and a really fun celebration too.
It was, we still talk about that day.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was, we say there's the three best days: the day Tim and I got married, the day the adoption happened, and the day Julian was born. But it was unbelievable. There was so much love in that room. Like he said, all the DCF workers that there were so many of them were there and showed support. Or the principal of our school went, my parents, Tim's dad, our siblings, friends. Yes, the lieutenant governor.
Wow.
Yeah, it happened actually. It happened on National Adoption Day.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it
That's
was
incredible.
really special. Yeah, we have tons of pictures. We all went out for a nice lunch after that. It was one for the books for sure.
Yeah.
So the school was fairly supportive then, I assume, if the principal was there.
Yes, they were. Yeah. It's so Nate is now in middle school, so he doesn't go to our school anymore. But it was so nice when the three of us were together. Sometimes we would drive in together, just like checking up throughout the day. But yeah, our school and a lot of those teachers still ask about Nate every day. It's a really nice community there.
Well, that's great to know. And I just want you to leave the audience with this, Jenna, because some people, this goes for people, this goes for dogs in general, that we need people to foster kids. We need people to foster dogs, adopt kids. What would you tell people listening to this that maybe are a little nervous about fostering a child, maybe nervous about adopting a kid in general? What would you tell them?
I was nervous too. And of course, there's so much to be nervous and to worry about, but try and push that to the back. And if you have the space in your heart or the space in your house, to go for it, because there are so many kids that can use that, a loving place to go. And it might not always be a permanent thing. They may just need a temporary place. There, even for someone who's not looking for a huge commitment like that. I know Connecticut, they have you can be a foster grandparent who goes to schools and, reads stories and things like that. But I would encourage people to try and push the worries aside and just to follow your heart, because it was the best thing we ever did. And I couldn't imagine our life without Nate.
All right. Again, Nate, well, before I close, I'll ask you if you have anything to say for the people that are listening and viewing this.
I would like to say for the kids who are in foster care that even though it might be hard, just keep on having hope and faith, and you'll get through it.
Well, listen, Nate, we'll keep following your story and we'll stay in touch. And we're very happy that you're doing extremely well in school, and keep up the good work, because hopefully down the road, you'll be a great leader in our society, and you're already a great leader for the young kids at the school already. I'm sure they're following your lead. So, Nate and Jenna, thanks so much for coming on the program. Greatly appreciate your time today.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us.
Nate wants to be an actor, so you may see him on the big screen.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Big screen, and just keep up the great work in education in general, because we need some smart kids because the country needs some good leaders.
Yes.
That's for
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah.